welcome back to another episode of Spilling Studio. My name is Sam, and this week we have 7 ARE practice questions designed to help you pass your next exam. We have one question per exam topic and a bonus question at the end, so stick around. First up is practice management. An architect mistakenly calls for wood paneling on a wall in the bathroom that was supposed to be tile. The client wants the architect to fully pay for the cost of this change. However, the architect claims the tile would have been purchased by the owner for the project anyway, so the architect should only pay the extra charges for labor to redo the room. What is this an example of? Standard of care, statute of limitations, betterment, statute of repose. Pause here to answer. The answer is betterment. The concept of betterment can apply to claims of omission by the architect. In this scenario, the mistake was the architect's, however, the client would have had to pay for the tile anyway. Therefore, the architect is only required to cover the cost of labor to bring the contractor back to the site and remove the wood paneling. Standard of care is what a prudent architect would do in the same location during the same time period and under the same circumstances. It holds the architect accountable for their professional actions, but it does not require perfection. Statute of limitations begins at substantial completion, and it sets a time limit for when a claim can be filed. After that time, no claims can be made. Each state has their own time period, but it's typically between 3 and 10 years. Statute of repose begins when the issue is discovered. It can often have 2 different time limits, one at discovery and one at substantial completion. The statute of repose is used in some states. Next up is project management. An architect has been awarded the construction of a new elementary school using the design-build project delivery method. Interior design and furniture layouts have already been completed. The contractor determines the building systems will use design-build subcontractors. Which of the following team members does the architect need to include to complete the project? Check all that apply. Civil engineer, fire protection engineer, structural engineer, mechanical and electrical engineers, plumbing engineer, and specifications writer. Feel free to pause here to answer. And the answer is civil engineer, structural engineer, and a specifications writer. In this scenario, the architect and contractor are already on the team since it's a design-build project, and interior design has been completed. The contractor is using design-build subcontractors for the building systems, which includes mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and fire protection. Therefore, the remaining team members needed from the options that are listed are the civil engineer, structural engineer, and a specifications writer. A team member not listed as an option, but that would also be needed, is a landscape architect. Now on to programming and analysis. An architect is designing a new home and would like to select a roofing material with high reflectivity. What measurement should the architect review when selecting a material? Emissivity, thermal emitance, slope, albedo. Pause here to answer. The correct answer is albedo. Albedo is the fraction of radiant energy that is reflected from the surface. So typically, lighter colors have high albedo and darker colors have low albedo. The value of albedo ranges from 0 to 1. Opposite of albedo is emissivity, which is the ability of a surface to emit stored energy. Emissivity is also a fraction, and when added to albedo, they equal 1. Thermal emittance is similar to albedo and emissivity, but it measures thermal radiation. Slope is a fraction of rise over run and is the measure of a surface's steepness. Our question for project planning is, Which of the following should be included in the project budget for unforeseen changes or unanticipated rise in material costs? Inflation, contingency, financing, or site development? Pause to answer. And the answer is contingency. Contingency is a percentage of money set aside for unexpected costs during construction. If issues arise during construction, then money can be pulled from contingency instead of cutting costs from other parts of the project. It's like insurance for the project. Inflation measures the increase of cost of materials over a certain period of time. Your initial thought may be, why do I have to include inflation if the project's gonna start right after we finish construction documents? Well, after construction documents are finished, it typically takes at minimum a year for commercial projects to begin construction, sometimes even longer. This is typically due to permitting and negotiation with the contractor. Those things take time. It is also important to include if the owner decides to raise money for the project before construction, so the start of construction may not be known. The longer the owner waits, the higher the project cost will be due to inflation. Financing is used to fund the construction of a new building. It's a construction loan. Financing includes long-term interest paid on the loan. This number is typically not included in the project budget because it's an ongoing cost for the owner, similar to maintenance costs. Site development covers all site improvements of the project. This can include parking, roads, landscaping, exterior lighting, and irrigation. This amount is typically counted separately from building costs. A brief pause here to remind you that I post new questions every week, so please hit that subscribe button to make sure you don't miss out on a video. It also really helps me out, so thank you. Now on to project development. Reference the graph below. Where is the yield point located? A, B, C, or D? Pause to answer. And the correct answer is C. This chart shows what happens to a material when force is applied. Deformation, which is strain, is directly proportional to the stress up to a certain point. At a certain point, the material will reach a point where it begins to change faster in length than the applied force. This is the elastic limit. Think of elastic limit like when you first start to pull on a rubber band. Then, for some materials, there's a second point that is slightly above the elastic limit, and that is the yield point. This is when a material continues to quickly deform with very little increase in force. If the force continues to increase, the material will eventually rupture. The split second before it fails is the ultimate strength point. Next up is construction evaluation. The construction of a new elementary school is in progress. Paint samples have arrived, and the contractor has painted a small area on each wall according to the finish schedule for the architect to review. The architect would like to change the color of the north wall to match the south wall. What should the architect issue? G710, G714, G716, B101. Pause to answer. And the correct answer is G710. G710 is for the architect's supplemental instructions. This is used for minor changes directed by the architect. In this example, the paint had not been ordered yet, so the architect was able to make a change without affecting the project cost or time. The architect's supplemental instructions, or ASI, only requires a signature from the architect. G701 is used for change orders. A change order will affect the project time or cost and must be signed by all three parties, the owner, the architect, and the contractor. G714 is for construction change directives, and G716 is used for RFIs. Last but not least, our bonus question is, when does concrete reach design strength? 7 days, 14 days, 28 days, or 60 days? Pause here to answer. And the answer is 28 days. Concrete hardens and gains strength during curing, which is not the same thing as drying. It gains strength through the chemical reaction between water and cement. Curing concrete under the proper conditions of moisture and temperature is crucial for the first 7 days. Design strength is the strength the concrete should be at 28 days. A core cylinder test is used once the concrete has cured for 28 days to verify it has met the required design strength. That's our questions for this week. Remember to go check out the description for links to some of the AIA contracts covered in this video. I've also linked some of my favorite study books, so go check those out. Let me know in the comments what subject areas you're struggling with, and I'll do my best to get it covered in the next video. Thank you all for joining, please subscribe, and good luck on your next exam. You got this!